What will the future of real estate look like? Is conventional real estate dying? Join us while we dive into conversations to explore that very question and attempt to demystify current and potentially new real estate trends with the disruptors themselves. All right. Good morning, you guys. I'm so excited to connect with you both here on the first day of spring. Yeah. So Al-Karim and Craig, before we get into a little bit about Propra, and I love the t-shirts, by the way, I would love if you both could just do a little bit of intro, who you are and where you were pre-Propra.
Okay, Al-Karim, co-founder and CEO of Propra. I'll give you the fast version because I'd like to give the long version, but born and raised in Calgary, background in real estate, both in hospitality as well as my own rental portfolio, former consultant and private equity as well, and sort of lover of community.
Oh, I like that. Okay. Over to you, Craig. That's a hard act to follow there. Hey?
So yeah, my name is Craig Adam, co-founder and CTO of Propra. I guess my story in the fast version is that I grew up writing software. I grew up at a keyboard. I've always been that tech guy. Prior to Propra, I was running tech teams, hundreds of developers, and most famously worked for Skip the Dishes, helping them kind of scale up their technical operations.
Skip the what? Just kidding. No, I use them all the time. That's awesome. Okay, so you guys seem like you are a very good business marriage. Then if you have kind of like that business side and real estate side, meet tech side. So how did you guys meet and how did this relationship start, if you will?
Which story? All right. Well, for me, I was working at Skip the Dishes, like I said, and it was a great time. I really loved the energy and the excitement of the startup. But of course, it moving to an enterprise, it changed. The energy changes, right? So I had moved on from Skip the Dishes to another organization where I was the head of software for a global IT firm, and it was when I was working there, I had some former colleagues reach out to me who, used to work with me at Skip the Dishes. Now they'd moved on to something else where they were, starting, looking for people to join startups and to help found startups. And so a friend reached out and he's like, hey, if you know anybody that's looking for a startup CTO role, let me know. And I'm like, hey, I'm kind of like a guy like that.
Hey, I am that guy.
Right. So I joined up and they kind of introduced me to Al-Karim.
And is this Platform Calgary?
Sorry?
Are you referring to Platform Calgary or no?
No, it's just
different. Okay.
Builders.
Okay.
And Craig's, I guess you work directly with Chris Samare.
Yeah.
And so Chris was sort of leader there. And we all got connected through Chris.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I love when people can meet kind of there's synergies out there, right? So I love when there's connectors out there that are so good at just knowing, hey, I know a guy or I know this gal that would make a really good addition to your group or your idea or your whatever. So I love hearing these type of stories. So then you guys met, you've always liked each other. And then here we are now with Propra. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yes, but I love how you said we met, we got along. We bonded over cheese pizza.
Oh, cheese. Okay, sorry. Where did you get your cheese pizza? And was it only cheese?
It's typically only cheese.
Formaggi, though, is it the one from Una?
That's one of our favorites.
Right, that's the best.
Last night, we tried. We normally go to Una or Nick's. We tried Pizza Face last night. It was actually their 4 cheese was very good.
Yeah.
They're a pop-up, right? They're only open or are they open all the time now?
On 17th. But Una's hands down favorite.
Yeah.
Bridgeland location.
Yeah. Right by home.
Those guys are great.
Yeah, I haven't been to the Bridgeland location, but the 17th one, great happy hour. I like to go there every now and then. So you can find me there, guys. Okay, bonding over cheese pizza, talking about tech and business and real estate.
And let me rewind a little. What we learned really quickly as we started to explore the space. So I had actually, while I was consulting, I had started to, I rented out my apartment, and I thought this was kind of interesting because they say it's passive income.
Mhm.
And then I found it really fun. And a friend of mine, a realtor, said, "Hey, I've got another unit very similar to yours. It was like a loft style in downtown Calgary. Do you want to buy it?" So I said, "Yeah, let me. And so I started to scale this little rental portfolio.
Mhm.
And what I quickly figured out was that
It's not so passive.
it's not right?
Yeah.
Very hard. And when it rains, it pours. And so at one point I had a tenant, Chantel, there was water pouring down from the above unit into the pantry. And in the other unit, the tenant had broken the key in the door
Fantastic.
on the same day. And I was on a project, I think in Mexico City or something. And I was like, this is terrible. Like, I don't.
Yeah, you're stressed out enough at work in Mexico, and now you have to deal with all this bananas stuff happening here in Calgary. Okay.
And so this was interesting because I knew there was a problem here, because when you started talking to people about it, it was really awkward.
Mhm.
But I didn't do anything with it until I met Craig. And that's when we started to learn about the space. And Craig always talked about the idea of bringing that modern experience of, you can see your pizza, it's now in the oven, it's been boxed, it's in a car, it's
Domino's.
driving to, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Domino's is a tech company that just sells pizza. Right?
Yeah, it's perfect.
And then it's at your door. And that experience, I mean, airlines have also figured this out. Now you get a text that says, come to gate C50, you're flying to, I don't know, Vancouver, right? And so how do we do that in the resident and landlord space, right? And so that was the idea, is how do we bring that modern technology forward? So Propra, we automate residential property management. Our thesis is, how do we bring that modern technology to that resident and landlord relationship? And how do we, for the landlord or property manager, how do we ease the burden of that experience? How do we simplify it so that you can focus on growth or providing a better customer or tenant experience?
So I love this. Also have a few rental properties, and boy, do I hear what you're saying. When it rains, it pours. I haven't had the actual water, the literal rain yet, the water coming down, but it's such a pain in the butt. So that brings me to a couple of questions. Does Propra serve short-term rentals and those pain points as well yet, or just the long-term rentals? And not just, because I mean, that is a whole can of worms there in and of itself. So
that's a great question. Right now, we're focused on the typical, rental, typically the 1-year rental, but, folks have used it for shorter or longer. And we're really focused on key steps in that process. So what does the, documentation of your financials look like? So what does the accounting piece look like? We've built a move-in, move-out inspection tool that's connected.
Perfect.
Maintenance tool. So let's say you're doing a move-in, move-out inspection, you see some drywall damage, click of one button, it becomes a maintenance task. If we continue down that workflow, the maintenance task can be tracked. There's transparency with the tenant. Someone's in your unit, someone's coming to your unit, there's a calendar invite. The work is completed. Hey, take a picture of that receipt from, I don't know, whatever, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever, so you can track that cost directly to the unit.
That's so great.
And there's a handful of like application or, leasing process. And how do we bring all of those pieces together, which is what we've built so far. And the next big thing is actually payments.
Oh, fantastic. To collect rent?
Exactly. Oh. And if you're a property manager, also to pay out the owner.
Yes. Okay. That is terrific. So your target audience, if you will, say if it's me and I have a couple doors or a couple properties, am I too small? Is there a threshold? Do you have to be a licensed property manager? How does that look like? Who are our stakeholders here that would be looking to use Propra?
Currently, our typical customer is sort of north of 200 units. And that's where we are right now. Mm-hmm. And what we've figured out is there's a series of tools that you need at that sort of level.
Totally.
What we plan to do is launch self-onboarding tools so that we can serve folks like yourselves who have a couple units and who want to just, use elements of the software and make it easier to run that little portfolio themselves. We've actually learned that 40 of those Canadians that own a second home or an apartment and for rentals, about 45% of them self-manage. And so that's a huge group of Canadians that we could help. as well.
Totally. And I did see your Propra has a pretty good size here in Western Canada. And then Nova Scotia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're growing fast. So we're in 6 provinces already.
Yeah.
And we're looking to continue to expand. I mean, I think the team has done an amazing job of we figured out how to replicate by jurisdiction.
Mhm.
And so
Right, because there's different rules and regulations, right, per province, probably.
Yeah.
Well, that makes a huge difference too, because we looked at kind of the options that are out there, and none of them have support for things like, I don't know, GST remittance, which is a big deal for Canadians. It doesn't matter for non-Canadians, and a lot of the kind of other software that you can get just isn't really kind of tailored to this specific market. Even things like in Saskatchewan, the rules around PST are a little different, and so like we know about that and have adapted the software to be smart around Saskatchewan properties.
Yeah, that's really neat. And then so you're planning to scale across the rest of Canada. And from what I understand, potentially all of North America. Is that correct? You're going to look into the States?
that's the plan. We were fortunate to be included in a delegation by Alberta Innovates. And so I went to South by Southwest in Austin last week, actually. Yeah. Sorry, time is just flying.
Time blurs together.
It was great to hear that there were similar issues, right? That that some of the technology out there, and less about, I'm not really about, kind of incumbent bashing, but more about talking about how do we use technology to move forward quickly and change this relationship, right? So, one of my favorite things that Craig has built is that when a maintenance task is scheduled, the tenant gets a calendar invite.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that.
So instead of just thinking, hey, someone's coming, when?
And it cuts out a lot of those text messages like, hey, Amy, are you going to be home Tuesday at 4? No, 7? Okay. And things always happen with your maintenance guy and they're delayed. Or is there a way for the maintenance guy to provide updates, kind of like that Domino's, like the maintenance guy is on his way, maintenance guy is out front your door, or maintenance guy?
And we've got a mobile app, Apple and Android app.
Oh, cool. All right.
Tailored to maintenance operators out in the field. So it's like the whole experience there is just for the people who are handling day-to-day calls.
That is very neat. So from what I understand from both your backgrounds, you've really taken a lot of lessons learned over the last, call it decade or two. We won't age yourselves. It could be half a decade. Who knows?
Back from the camera.
Yeah. Totally. But it really does seem like you've kind of taken a bunch of lessons learned over the course of your careers and kind of put them together and was like, I'm having trouble with this, or this was a pain in the butt in that job. And how do we just harmonize this and make it better for real estate, specifically the property management piece? So that to me is incredibly cool that you're taking sort of this tech side of things and really alleviating a lot of pain points that folks like myself and yourself, Al-Karim, that experience. You're like, oh shit, is this even worth it? Like, should we sell the portfolio?
Yeah, and I think like when like most people, like the function of property management is not the reason you buy the apartment or you want to build this, and sometimes you just never know, right? Like the last unit that we have, we just love, and so we've kind of kept it. And our tenant's great, and the tenant before was great, but the tenant before that was okay,
medium.
Like, how do you feel about that? Right?
Yeah.
There's always that unknown, like I haven't seen the unit for like 6 months now. Like, what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And so there's so many things about this, and then life happens. And so how do we use technology to even just keep things in order, right? Like, think about this. If you have a small portfolio and it gets worse as you scale because it becomes more complex, you have a small portfolio, you need to submit your taxes. You need to put all that paperwork together.
Yeah.
If you had an accounting tool that could document that, so it shows your rent, maybe shows your payments, come the end of the year, you just kind of like send package to accountant. And I mean, it's not that simple, but like, you send them, pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to change.
You mean you're not at tax season quickly scribbling or going in Excel and being like, oh my gosh, where is this piece of paper? Where's the invoice from that, plumber or whatever the case may be?
That's exactly right. The technology is out there. It's been available. It's just, it's not an easy thing to take that technology, all the cloud stuff and all the great, new tech that has become available in the past like 10 years, and just apply it to a specific industry. And I think, that's where, we can take the lessons that we've learned from applying the technology to other domains, bring it to this specific problem. So it excites me for sure.
It kind of excites me. So this is a biased question I'm about to ask. Okay. I am from the Maritimes.
Okay.
And I want property back home, but it is obviously seems like it's harder to manage something farther away. Would Propra help in an instance like that? Say I live in Calgary, hypothetically speaking, and I want to buy property in the Maritimes, hypothetically. Will Propra help connect me to the plumber, the tradesperson that can fix the roof and collect the money? Like, it seems like this might be the answer to my prayers. So is that a business case for the future, or is that something that, yeah.
I mean, okay, so we talk about lessons learned from past experiences, and we know that one of the problems that we saw at Skip was this connection of like driver, like the ability of a courier, somebody taking food to, for restaurants. Not every restaurant can afford to have its own, delivery staff. And so that was a really big problem that we were able to solve. And just like that, we see that not every property manager is necessarily going to have a staff of field operators that can go out and handle calls and deal with maintenance issues. Or find contractors to deal with specialized issues. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely on our radar as far as like, how are we going to help solve that? We knew though, that in order to be able to solve that problem, we need to first have the base of the property management system.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's kind of the first step. We're kind of going about this very methodically and trying to make sure that we're adding value and proving out the solution at each stage.
Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic. It seems like you have a pretty well thought through long-term plan. What may I ask, what has been your biggest challenge up until this point? And how were you able to navigate it? I'm sure there's been lots. I mean, it's startup life, right? So you weren't always at Una.
Okay, I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I think the biggest challenge is you're prioritizing and reprioritizing every day. Because the startup journey is challenging and you want to be able to take in all of the inputs and listen to the feedback and then do something about it. Mm-hmm. The challenge is that there's feedback every moment of this journey, right?
It's exhausting, I'm sure.
The last question that you asked is validation for what we're doing.
Oh, right? Perfect. Okay.
Because we're hearing that someone else is saying, hey, it's a problem for me. Right.
Yeah. And
so it's how do we keep listening to the feedback, and constantly adapting and evolving? Because what we're trying to do is by listening to the customer, the product will kind of drive the growth. Mm-hmm. And so it's just going on that journey together and figuring that out and constantly talking about it, but also realizing we're moving at this amazingly fast pace.
Yeah. And being agile enough along the way, right?
Yeah. And on top of that, so now we have a team. Very fortunately, we have a team and we have customers, and we're growing at a pretty fast rate right now, 32% month over month.
Holy cow. That's amazing, guys.
That's a lot, right?
That's awesome.
We're trying to be thoughtful along the way, and also strike some sort of reasonable balance so that we can, hang out, eat pizza, spend time with friends again.
Yeah, not lose your whole life over this. Success at what cost is what, so that's awesome. This is 32%. Holy cow. That's great. I mean, so the word's getting out.
Yeah. I mean, people are interested, and we also have been fortunate something's been happening of recent where we've been seeing like a couple inbound leads every week. When before it was like one inbound lead a month, and now it's like multiple on a weekly basis, and on the weekends, which is interesting.
That's cool. Well, that's when kind of shit goes wrong though, when you're a property manager. It seems when bad things happen is always usually on the weekend for who knows what reason, but yeah.
I'm curious I'm
yeah, no.
but I'm curious what you thought was the hardest thing.
The hardest thing.
Yeah.
I mean, from a tech perspective, the hardest thing is always going to be very similar. Like we're always trying to build like the next piece of technology, but we have to be thoughtful about like not just the sequence of features and how we're going to put them together, but how is it going to work as a whole? So I'm always thinking, from an architectural, like technical architecture standpoint of like where is the system right now? Where do we want it to be long term? And then what's kind of the next directly, like the next most immediate step that will get us one step closer to our long-term vision, but also build on what we have in a way that doesn't incur whole kinds of technical debt and issues that we then have to like put up fires later on. So we've been very thoughtful about how we build it. Like one of my responsibilities at Skip was managing outages and stuff like that. And believe me, when people can't get their dinner, it's a big deal.
Well, if people can't get paid on their rental property, also a big deal.
From the ground up, it's always been, let's build for reliability, let's build for observability, like all the things that you don't see commonly at a startup. We kind of started from that position because I've had to deal with that, like security issues and all that. I had to make sure that this system was going to be, and I don't want to invoke the legend of Titanic, but like, I want it to be unsinkable, right? That's
a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
No, that seems to make lots of sense. And then the user face, making sure it's, user friendly for the folks that have to use it day in and day out, because if it gets too cumbersome, I'm the worst at buying a piece of software or tech or something, be like, this will save my life. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, but I don't know how the heck to use this thing. And I don't have the time to take the 10 hours of training. So yeah, I'm sure you've thought about that and onboarding and.
Yeah, the onboarding journey, we've actually spent a lot of time working on and simplifying so that we take you on this journey and we make it really easy so that you can hit the ground running. We also want to make sure that we actually do this overlap period where we want you to run our software and your old software for one.
Oh, brilliant.
So that it helps just make sure that we got everything. And then it's a smooth cutover, right?
Yeah. I was on a customer call too. That was where we were helping them move over, and they were coming from QuickBooks to the Propra accounting system. And of course, having worked with QuickBooks in the past, there's a lot of things that are similar and whatnot. And our customer was saying like, this is it just makes sense. Like I have no questions. It's like QuickBooks for property management, so it's fine.
Yes, I love that. And you had the built-in redundancy, which obviously helps there.
Yeah, and so another story is that we had a customer who within 2 hours of her onboarding was already out and using our inspection feature.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
So it's quick. You can use it almost instantaneously, it sounds like.
Yeah. And I think this is to the team's credit, like that user interface, that user experience, we've really focused on keeping it really straightforward. And so this specific customer, I remember hearing about her onboarding process because we kind of walk you through step by step. It was like, go here, click here, do this, try this. And she was already like 20 minutes ahead in that experience.
You're like, success, this is good.
She was like, I'm already past that. Like, what about this? Cool. And
is cool.
That's a great signal, right? Because it means that the customer could figure it out. It was logical. The buttons were in the right place. It was like well staged. Those are great signals.
No, that is a really good signal. I would say if people are trying, and she sounded like she was hungry to like hit the ground running with it. So that's another good use case, right?
Oh, that was an inbound lead as well, which was amazing.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. So very exciting.
Here, was it an Albertan person? Yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, interesting. Neat. So you've seen some trends. You were just down in Austin for the conference. Is there anything from your guys' perspective, anything else that you think in the real estate specific industry? So we'll step back, and it can be property management. It can be, residential. It can be commercial. It can be kind of the whole gamut there. How else do you see besides cool property technology like your guys? What else is going to change the real estate? Shake it up, because it needs to be shaken up.
I'll go first. I think there's a couple things from a macro perspective. We're seeing higher interest rates. Bank of Canada kept it stable, but the European Central Bank actually increased interest last week before last. So, those are interesting trends. What is the implication on real estate, does that mean that housing supply will not be as large? Does this mean that, from a realtor perspective, does that mean you're sort of changing your business model?
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking at different things? I think that rentals will see greater growth because people can't buy homes in a lot of cases. Or even
what was it, 35% increase, the rent increase last year here in Calgary?
Yeah, these are very common trends, right? So I think
this is a hot spot to be investing, folks, if you're looking to build a rental portfolio. So it's good to have software like Propra right here, homegrown for these investors. And they're flocking to Calgary right now. So it's good to know that these type of services are out there.
Yeah, and absolutely. And thank you for that. I think the other piece is that if we go on that journey, there's going to be, as you have more people in your buildings and you're managing a larger portfolio and you're scaling that portfolio, how do you manage that growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need to add people, or could you use technology to make that relationship easier?
Yeah, no, that's good. How about you, Craig? What do you see shaking things up?
I think that it's, a similar trend, I think, what Algrim's mentioned before, right? Like there's people's expectations for technology and for service providers is changing over time, right? Like where once you could get away with, posting, maybe a piece of paper, now people expect to get notifications on their phone. They expect to have an app that they can use to interact with things. And they expect maybe blame Apple or others for this. They expect it all together. It should just all work. And the reality is it's really hard for everybody to make that possible. That seamless kind of magical experience that people have come to expect is something that's really hard to pull off. And it's hard for not just the technology providers, it's hard for the individual property managers, particularly when they're dealing with a whole bunch of different pieces of technology. How do you integrate that and provide that experience for you?
And I'm sure there's an element of fear. Right? So some of these larger property managers that have been doing it for a while, I'm sure there's an element of fear. Some folks are afraid of change. Yeah. Some folks are afraid of, well, if we change and what if it fails, can we go back? So I think it's good that, you have proven use cases. People are starting to come to you. I think that element of fear we'll start to see it dissipate. It's like when people were leaving BlackBerry, to go to Apple more. I was like, no, I love my QWERTY keyboard. How will I, it's great for emails. And now I'm like, BlackBerry, what? So.
There's that, you should talk more about technology. I'm just gonna talk about my experience, which is, I think we talked about the tenant, but also think about your employee, like your team member, at that owner, operator, or property manager, right? Mm-hmm. Or even that real estate agent, how are we all using technology to make better connections, to do this work differently? And so I think that relationship has changed, and that I think there's been a steeper and more welcoming adoption to technology, especially through COVID, right? I think like ordering groceries online are becoming. Not everyone's doing it. I'm
doing it. I like that a lot. Instacart's a lifesaver.
There's all these little things, right, that are changing the way we were doing things, which before, we didn't imagine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we take a very thoughtful approach too, especially with our larger customers, where they've got staff who are kind of being asked to do something different, to change how they work every day.
Yeah,
and we recognize that's tough. Change is hard. One of my previous roles, I led an organizational change management office, and I know what it takes to build kind of that awareness and desire and knowledge in order to set the stage for a really successful change and to get the benefits from the change that you're hoping for. So we really work hard to help our customers with that part of it too.
It's very good. It looks like you both have thought about it from all of the angles, all of the stakeholders. And again, like I said earlier, you just looked back and were like, oh, man, remember when that was so challenging or so tough, and how can we make it better? And so I think that is a strong differentiator besides the technology piece, which obviously is a disruptor all in itself, but it's being able to learn and apply and make things better for those people coming forward and going forward. And it probably will allow people to hop into real estate investing because it will be a little bit easier because, when you start out, it's hard.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard. And so you use a tool to help you simplify process.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do.
And who doesn't want anything easier? Right?
In your life.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you both, what is your top books recommendations that you would share with the audience? It could be a podcast. It could be a course you've taken recently. It could be a group you belong to. What is 1, 2 from each of you that you would like to share that you highly recommend?
I have 3 things that come to mind, so I'll let you think.
Okay.
Okay. Number 1, there's a podcast called How I Built This on NPR. Fantastic, just to learn about people's journeys to build ventures. I'm reading a book right now about Netflix. I think it's called No Rules Rules, and it's about the culture of Netflix.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Focused on innovation over efficiency and sort of different ways of challenging typical sort of ways businesses work. And third one is this book called The Second Mountain. And it's about how when we come out of like, maybe you came out of high school and you started working, or out of university and you started working, you were just so focused on like, a job and these things. And how do we start thinking about sort of like greater purpose and what is the impact of our work, and how do we engage in our community? And do you want to be like the, involved in your community association, or, on a local board, or maybe you just want to just have a great group of friends that you connect with beyond your family.
I like that one. I'm actually going to put that in my Amazon cart today.
Okay.
Speaking of technology, Amazon card.
I think I got the book that I like, I think most when it comes to thinking about like startups and all that, and the mindset is a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Really great book. It kind of talks about like the wartime mindset, the peacetime mindset. And, I feel like I've lived in both environments, and, there's a time and a place for both kind of approaches. And for me, just personally, like I'm really attracted to the tension and the excitement of that kind of startup wartime mentality. And
you're adrenaline junkie.
like even and my job was responding to outages. Like I'm used to emergency response, and I kind of like that. I know I can handle it, and I like it. But they definitely talk a lot about that and responsibility. The other one that I'll recommend which I really like. And I can't remember the author now offhand, but it's called Atomic Habits. You see it on the shelves.
Oh yeah, I think I have it.
But it's really good. Like it's all about like choosing small things and making it out of it, and you do that over time, and they have a compounding effect. And so by the end of a year, you can make huge changes just by making small changes habitual, which I think is really powerful. I've used that to do all kinds of different things, like even before I read the book. So reading the book was like a reinforcement of like.
It was like an aha, yeah. What was your biggest habit? I'm just out of curiosity now that you've incrementally changed over time.
Oh, my biggest habit.
I know.
I stopped eating breakfast.
Oh God. Did you read Lifespan?
Did not. No.
All right. Add that to your list. My husband's obsessed right now. He's not eating breakfast. He's all about like biohacking now. I don't know. So this is what it triggered me. I think I have PTSD from this.
I still eat breakfast, but I eat breakfast for pleasure. Like on the weekends, I'll have like a brunch. Yeah. But I don't see it as a function anymore. I'd rather just get up and kind of start working. And then I usually have like this kind of adrenaline. And then I didn't find that it was those that I needed that. And I feel better. So that was just one thing that helped me. And it also helped me manage kind of my energy intake and make sure that I was matching that to my needs.
It's awesome. I do love reading a bunch of books or listening podcasts and like gleaning little bits, and you can apply certain bits over time, and some may not be applicable at that period of time. But then over time, like you said, you're like, oh my gosh, this is from this book and I didn't even know, but now it, validates why I've done some of these things. Okay. So I've taken up a lot of your time. I'm so sorry, but before we end, I would love to hear what's next. We've talked a little bit about it earlier, but what's your next like big milestone coming up?
That
you want to share and can share, I should say.
It's so many things, like little things. I think from a customer perspective, we want to continue to grow across Canada, And we're big believers in the positive impact that we can have on the lives of these property managers, as well as their tenants. I mean, the role of the property manager is somewhat thankless. It's hard, you're getting these phone calls, people are complaining. And so how do we make the running of that business easier? Because you are talking about, I think about a third of Canadians live in rental accommodations.
Wow.
And so if we can have a positive impact on more and more of these people's lives, that's meaningful.
I think so. Also, like a lot of there's a segment of our customers. This is not small segment that they do third party property management. So that means that they manage not only rentals for other people, but they also manage like condos and stuff like that for condo boards. And they have a lot of responsibilities as far as reporting back to the condo board of like, all their financials and stuff like that. And that ends up taking a lot of time. It's a lot of work to not just do the data gathering, but also to assemble all the reports and send them all out. And one of the things that we know is that we can save that, because a lot of what they're doing isn't value added human work. It's just literally like moving boxes around, collating papers together. It's terrible work that doesn't.
The administrative burden.
Exactly. It's the hassle. And one thing that technology is good at is eliminating the hassle of things and taking over those tasks that should be automated, that shouldn't be wasting human potential on moving papers around.
So I lied.
And so one big milestone we got coming up is, I think, the ability to automate that process of click a button and all of your, owner report packages.
Will that work for condo documents?
That's the idea, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So again, I lied because I was like, follow-up question, pain point for realtors everywhere, getting condo docs at the time of sale. And not having it cost an arm and a leg and take a week or 2 weeks. I'm like, what? This is ridiculous. So anyway, feedback. Do with it as you will.
Original, very first customers, or actually people that we had spoken to, had told us that out of the gate.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So it's on the list.
Oh, fantastic. If you want to validate your list, call me anytime, guys. I'll meet you at Una. We'll have some pizza, fromage, a glass of wine. If people want to learn more about Propra and if they're a good candidate to sign up, or I did sign up for your white papers, so I will link the white papers as well. But where can they learn more about you besides maybe the Calgary Marathon 5K when you're wearing your t-shirts challenge?
5K is a huge commitment, but okay. I mean, all the pizza, right?
Right. Balance.
We're Calgary based. Come find us. Our website is www.propra.ca. You can also email us at info@propra.ca. We're also on LinkedIn. Come find both Craig and I, or even the company. Okay. There's lots of ways to find us.
Are you on any socials?
LinkedIn.
Just LinkedIn. Okay, perfect. That's good.
I mean, there's a lot to manage, right? I think inevitably we'll do things like Facebook and Insta.
Yeah. It's a lot though. The whole social media pain point, like don't even get me started on that. But all right, LinkedIn it is. We'll link your website. The white paper is very informative. So we'll make sure that we also link that. Awesome.
Amy,
well, thank you
so much.
No, thank you guys. You took time out of a Monday morning. I don't even know if you had coffee yet because it's early. So I appreciate you both taking time, and I look forward to staying in contact with both of you.
Thank you so much. Likewise.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation and exploring both current and predicted future real estate trends. Want to keep the conversation going? You can find us, Future RE, on both Instagram and TikTok.